We are going to start this deep dive with an assumption. Maybe it's a shared fantasy for many listening. You've done the math, you've optimized everything, you've hit your number, that incredible financial goal. Mandatory work is now optional.
You're financially independent?
Exactly. You just secured the most valuable thing there is, your own time.
Yeah, it feels like the ultimate win, right?
Yeah.
You've beaten the game, the spreadsheets, the saving, the delayed gratification. You did it.
But here's the twist we want to explore today. The credits roll, the celebration fades, and then what? You might find yourself standing in this vast, quiet, kind of profound emptiness.
It's a strange feeling after such a long chase.
It really is. And that's the paradox of the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early, that almost nobody talks about. We spend years, sometimes decades, relentlessly chasing this escape velocity.
We totally assume that all that effort on the budgeting, the index funds, the compounding will just naturally lead to fulfillment once we cross the finish line.
But what we found, digging into the sources for this deep dive, is that winning the specific financial game, it often leads straight into a pretty serious identity crisis. Feelings of emptiness, maybe even regret. The number itself wasn't the answer.
Right, that psychological void, that kind of dark side of early retirement, especially for high achievers.
Yeah.
That's what 99% of the FIRE content online just glosses over.
Totally. Everyone's focused on the 4% rule debates, the best ETFs, tax optimization.
The mechanics.
Yeah, the mechanics. Today, we're deliberately setting aside the calculators. We're focusing on the human challenge, the philosophical side of finding purpose and fulfillment after you've technically won.
And our mission here is really to give you, the listener, that sort of advanced curriculum. We've pulled together sources from, well, all over philosophy on goal setting, critiques from within the FIRE community itself, even some fascinating academic research on identity transition from places like INSEAD in Europe.
We're aiming for the recipe for happiness, for sustained meaning, not just a fat bank account.
So, welcome to the Deep Dive, brought to you by Project FIRE. Remember, the ultimate freedom isn't just the number in your account. It's the meaning you find in the time that number buys you. Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's unpack this central issue right away. This trap of confusing the money with, a fulfilling life.
Right. FI is often presented, maybe implicitly, as the ultimate solution, the perfect end state. Like, get the money, and then life starts.
And we have to start by saying financial independence is incredibly powerful. We're not knocking it at all.
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
FI is a potent tool. One source we looked at really emphasized this. The core value isn't the money itself. It's the control over your time.
Yeah.
It's reducing that external pressure, the feeling you have to do things.
That freedom lets you build a life that's, well, more balanced, less stressed, driven by what you want, not what your boss or the bills dictate.
It gives you options, real options, like looking at a job that's burning you out and just saying, nope, not doing this anymore. That power is huge.
Undeniable. But here's where the mistake creeps in. And it seems almost universal based on our sources. People let the tool, the FI number, take the place of their actual life goals.
Yeah, it becomes this welcome distraction, doesn't it? It's complex, it's memorable, it feels productive, and it stops you from having to ask those harder questions about what you really want.
It's structured, right? The pursuit of FI gives you constant feedback, check your net worth, watch the spreadsheet line go up. It's rewarding in the short term.
Compare that to figuring out your life's purpose. That's messy, it's uncomfortable, it requires deep, maybe even unpleasant self-reflection.
It's just easier, isn't it? Calculating your safe withdrawal rate is way more straightforward than sitting down and asking, what would I genuinely love to spend my life doing if money was no object?
The financial goal is concrete, tangible. The life goal, abstract. And the concrete tends to just swallow the abstract whole.
So you focus only on the saving rate, the investment strategy, agonizing over like tiny differences in ETF expense ratio.
It's 3 basis points.
Yeah. And money itself becomes the finish line, the product. You forget you were building this amazing rocket ship to go somewhere. If you don't know the destination, just having the rocket ship. Well, it feels a bit pointless after a while.
And this disappointment of achievement is a recurring theme, especially among high achievers. Once you hit that magic number, the novelty, the excitement, that feeling of having won, it wears off surprisingly fast.
Why? Because you realize, okay, I have the money, but money alone doesn't create sustainable happiness. Happiness comes from pursuing things, achieving things that matter to you personally, things that give you meaning, challenge, connection.
Which leads us straight to the core mantra. The one thing everyone on the FIRE path needs to tattoo on their brain, basically. Financial independence only solves money problems. That's it. nothing more.
It's a filter, not some magic potion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And look, solving money problems is huge. Let's not downplay that. Keeping a roof over your head, paying the bills, handling unexpected emergencies, that's massive.
Absolutely critical, but it just can't fix your relationships. It won't magically heal old wounds or traumas. And crucially, it won't automatically install happiness or self-motivation.
Right. Happiness isn't delivered in a box when you retire. It's a skill, something you develop through years of, intentional practice.
That distinction is so important. It highlights the difference between running away from something and running towards something.
Yeah, a lot of people discover fire when they're miserable, right? Toxic job, total burnout, feeling like life's slipping away. So the goal becomes escape, running away.
And they do it. They execute the financial escape plan brilliantly. But as one source put it, when you finally stop running, you find yourself
Yeah.
right where you started, just with more money.
Running away, even successfully, leaves you feeling kind of exhausted and passive.
Hmm.
It's not the foundation for a fulfilling post-FI life. That big question, what actually makes my life meaningful? Or you just kicked it down the road. You didn't answer it.
So if the goal isn't just about the money, then this crisis people feel right after quitting. It suggests we're missing something fundamental about how we structure our lives, maybe.
I think so. It brings us to this core existential problem. The huge structure-shattering void that opens up when the scaffolding of work is suddenly yanked away.
We really underestimate how much work does for us beyond the paycheck, don't we?
Massively. It's like this invisible framework holding up our whole existence. Work gives us an identity. It's the easy answer to, so what do you do? It structures our day, our week, our year. It even structures our thinking.
And maybe most importantly, it provides constant feedback, challenges, deadlines, that sense of progress our brains seem to crave.
We're creatures of habit, of ritual. Work gives us the morning commute ritual, the team meeting ritual, the performance review ritual, early retirement. Boom, that scaffolding is gone overnight.
And guess what the #1 surprise challenge is for early retirees, according to the research we looked at?
Let me guess. Boredom.
Bingo. Sheer, unexpected, gnawing boredom.
It sounds crazy, right? You're thinking, oh, I have all this time, hobbies, travel, books. How could I possibly be bored?
But the reality is, without that default structure having to be somewhere at 9 a.m., having that project deadline time can feel amorphous, wasted even. It leads to restlessness, dissatisfaction, a real dip in energy.
And a drop in self-worth, too, because those external markers of, I did something today, are gone.
It's like facing a blank page every single day, but the page is your life. One person interviewed described it as feeling like they were floating in thick, colorless gel. Not tired, just aimless.
And that lack of structure, that lack of purpose, it hits hard, especially if you quit a job you hated, because the money is still coming in, removing the need for external effort.
This aimlessness can quickly spiral into a full-blown identity crisis. That's a huge philosophical hurdle. Our careers are just so deeply tied to who we are, our sense of achievement, our purpose, especially in Western cultures.
So when that title, senior manager, engineer, teacher, disappears, the early retiree really struggles to figure out who they are without that external label.
They feel isolated, adrift, and weirdly, often quite anxious.
And the anxiety often comes from the sheer limitless possibility. It sounds great, but psychologically it can be overwhelming. It's the paradox of choice.
Explain that a bit more.
Well, if you can do literally anything with your time, choosing one thing and committing to it feels incredibly difficult, paralyzing even.
Because every choice feels like you're missing out on something else potentially better.
Exactly. When you had a job, your choices were constrained, right? 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. That defined a huge chunk of your time. Now, you have 168 hours a week, completely open. Every moment is a decision.
That sounds exhausting, actually.
It can be. It's the psychological cost of total freedom without a clear internal compass.
And this shows up painfully in social situations, that classic question. So what do you do now? Early retirees often just flounder.
Yeah, they try out different labels. Oh, I'm an investor. I'm focusing on family. Or the really awkward one. I do nothing. None of them feel quite right. They don't capture the sense of contribution or identity they used to have.
Even if the old job was stressful, it was socially recognized, validated. The new identity is just fuzzy.
And these are often people who spent years hitting very specific, measurable targets, career milestones, financial numbers. Now they lack both the goals and the external pressure. They have to generate it all internally.
And choosing which new identity, which new purpose to pursue out of infinite options while knowing time is still ticking, that's incredibly tough.
And we found a really interesting angle on this from entrepreneurs who hit FI by selling their companies. They often face this surprising fear of failure in whatever they do next.
Even though they've already had massive success.
Yeah, because many admit, privately at least, that luck, market timing, maybe external factors played a big role in that first success.
So they worry they can't replicate it. It links back to how we attribute success or failure.
Exactly. If they launch a passion project now, something purely chosen, and it fails, that failure feels much more personal, more profound. So that fear actually keeps them stuck, preventing them from even starting something new. The pressure to maintain that successful person image is still there, even without the job.
Wow. And all this internal struggle is often happening while feeling increasingly isolated, right?
Definitely. When you leave work early, you're not just leaving tasks and meetings. You're stepping out of your main social orbit.
Most of our easy day-to-day interactions happen at work, don't they? The coffee machine chat, lunch buddies, the quick check-ins.
That all disappears. And suddenly, the early retiree finds their schedule is totally out of sync, with friends still climbing the ladder or raising kids on a school schedule.
It makes connection harder, requires more effort.
A lot more effort. Building a new social structure, proactively seeking out community, finding connections outside of work.
Yeah.
It becomes a critical task for mental well-being. It's like a new job in itself, the job of building community.
Okay, let's make this more concrete. Let's walk through a couple of scenarios based on the sources, showing the different paths people take and the outcomes.
Good idea. Let's start with scenario A, the classic fire route,
Okay.
but done without really thinking about the life part alongside the money part. This is the path that often leads to that existential crisis we've been talking about.
So how does it usually start?
Typically, you discover fire, maybe online or from a book, often because you're desperate to escape something, a job you hate, feeling like you're stuck in a rut.
The motivation is primarily negative, getting away from something bad.
Right. And your energy immediately pivots. You dive headfirst into making a super detailed financial plan. You run simulations, you tweak the savings rate, you map it all out.
And then you start the long march. Aggressive saving, relentless optimization. It's often quite isolating.
And this is where the obsession can take hold. It becomes its own kind of job, really.
Yeah.
Budgeting every dollar, optimizing insurance, finding the cheapest groceries, tracking your net worth constantly.
Checking the investment account daily, getting that little dopamine hit when it goes up.
Exactly. The optimization itself becomes the hobby, the focus. You become an expert on tax loss harvesting, MERS, withdrawal strategies.
And this focus is so intense, and it almost has to be to hit those high savings rates that other crucial areas of life just get put on the back burner.
Things like physical health, deep relationships, dealing with emotional stuff, personal growth, they all get neglected.
And the justification is always the same, isn't it? I'll fix that later. Once I'm free, I'll have all the time and energy in the world.
It's a powerful form of self-deception. You're trading present well-being for this guaranteed future ease. But that guarantee, it's built on psychological quicksand.
So you grind it out for a decade, maybe longer. You make sacrifices, you miss out on things. Then finally, the day arrives, you hit the number, you quit the job. Maybe you take that big celebratory trip you always dreamed of.
2 months backpacking in Asia, restoring that old car.
But the sources are really clear on this, that novelty wears off fast. You quickly realize that escaping the job didn't fundamentally change you. And figuring out how to fill the next, say, 40 years, that feels way harder than saving the money ever did.
The structure you hated turns out to be the structure you relied on in a weird way.
And that's where the regret can hit hard. You look back and think, I spent years mastering skills. I don't even care about project management, PowerPoint, coding in some obscure language.
When I could have been slowly building towards something I actually wanted to do.
Exactly. You waited for the money to give you the confidence or the direction, and it just didn't deliver.
This whole approach gets compared in some of the philosophical stuff we read to the two-job route. Job 1, the soul-crushing career just for the money. Job 2, the promised land of post-FI freedom and fulfillment. It creates this total split between how you live and why you live.
And the downside of that extreme delayed gratification, it's pretty significant, isn't it? Possibly even damaging psychologically.
Yeah, the critique is that you risk sacrificing enjoyment and development during your prime years, your 20s, 30s, 40s, just to hoard skills you don't intend to use long term. You basically waste time becoming an expert in something meaningless to you.
And crucially, it trains your brain in a certain way, right? That hyper-optimization mindset.
It does. It fosters this deep-seated scarcity thinking. Years of focusing only on financial return makes it really hard to switch off. Even when you have the money, your brain resists doing things that don't have a clear financial ROI, like pursuing a deep hobby or doing unpaid volunteer work, even if those things would bring immense fulfillment.
It sets up this false choice. Either grind away miserably for 20 years to retire early, or grind away miserably for 50 years.
But the sources argue that's totally outdated now. With remote work, consulting, side hustles, solopreneurship, there are more integrated ways to build wealth while also doing purposeful work along the way. You don't necessarily have to choose one extreme or the other.
So the big risk here is delaying the life part. Waiting for the magic number to start living is really discouraged. Financial security is amazing, it's a huge enabler, but it won't do the hard work of figuring out your goals for you.
That work has to happen now. It needs to be integrated with the financial plan, not deferred until after.
That difference between the financial plan and the life plan, it seems absolutely critical. If you're listening now and maybe recognized a bit of yourself in that scenario, the spreadsheet obsession, putting relationships or health on hold, maybe this is a good moment to pause and reflect.
Yeah, our whole goal here at Project Fire is to give you the wisdom for the entire journey, not just the formulas. If this perspective is clicking for you, if it's sparking some useful self-reflection about what you're actually running toward, we'd really appreciate your support.
It helps us keep doing these deep dives. So if you've gotten value so far, please take a second right now, hit that like button, share this deep dive with others on the Fire path, maybe that friend whose net worth spreadsheet is getting a bit too detailed.
Definitely share it with them. And subscribe to the Project Fire channel for more insights like this. Oh, and tap the bell icon too, so you don't miss our future explorations into these sometimes tricky philosophical sides of fire. Your support genuinely keeps this project going.
All right, let's pivot. Let's talk about the better way. Scenario B, pursuing fire, but doing it with a life plan and some serious identity work from the get-go.
Okay, scenario B hinges on a fundamental shift in approach. Before you even draft the detailed financial plan, you invest significant time, real, focused effort, figuring out your actual life goals, your core values, what truly gives you purpose.
You create the holistic life plan first.
Exactly. And then you design the money plan to support that life plan.
And when you approach it that way, purpose first, what happens?
Often you have this aha moment. You realize that most of the things that would make you deeply happy, being truly present with family, dedicating serious time to a creative passion, getting involved in your community, they don't actually require millions and millions of dollars.
Money becomes an accelerator, maybe, but not the prerequisite for the life itself.
Precisely. Your financial plan then becomes just one flexible component of your bigger life strategy instead of being this single driving obsession.
And this purpose-first thinking often leads people away from needing full fire, right? They explore other options.
Yeah, very often. They might realize barista fire is perfect working part-time doing something they actually enjoy, just enough to cover expenses while their investments grow. Or coast fire, where they save aggressively for, say, 10, 15 years, reach a point where compounding will likely get them to traditional retirement age comfortably, and then they stop saving and focus on lifestyle now.
So the ideal outcome in scenario B is what? Less dramatic.
Much less dramatic and much more satisfying. Because you've already been actively working towards your ideal life, practicing your purpose, building that new identity for years alongside saving. Hitting FI doesn't trigger a crisis.
Life doesn't change overnight.
Right. It's more like a bonus layer of freedom. You can maybe drop the less desirable parts of your work or scale back and just focus more intensely on the priorities you've already established and have been living. You are already living a life aligned with your values. The money just makes it more secure, more sustainable.
Okay, so how do you avoid the crisis? The experts strongly suggest testing things out first. You can't just rely on spreadsheets.
No, you need psychological data, not just financial projections. This means testing before committing. The concept of the mini retirement comes up a lot.
Like taking a sabbatical.
Exactly. Deliberately planned sabbaticals, even short ones, 2, 3, 4 months, can provide incredible clarity. They force you to live without the external structure of work.
You get to stress test your assumptions about how you'll spend your time.
Precisely. You find out if you actually enjoy spending 6 hours a day writing, or if volunteering feels meaningful, or if you just get restless. It helps you discover new potential purposes and make much smarter long-term decisions about your direction.
And the practical test is pretty simple, but maybe uncomfortable.
It is. Take a few months off. Crucially, don't just fill it with busy travel or a huge project that's just avoiding the real test of unstructured time. Try to live this schedule you think you want post-fire.
Wake up without an alarm. Try to do the things you plan to do, the hobbies, the reading, the exercise.
And then observe yourself honestly.
Right.
Are you feeling energized, focused, engaged? Or are you feeling adrift, restless, maybe even a bit lost? That gives you real psychological insight that no amount of financial modeling can provide. It tells you if this freedom thing actually fits the person you've become.
This idea of intentionally changing your identity, it's so central. And there's actual research on how this works psychologically, right?
Yes, there's a whole field looking at this. It's often called identity transition. It's not just random, it's a structured process. We found a great psychological roadmap for it.
Let's get into those mechanics, especially the research from places like INSEAD, looking at high achievers making voluntary career shifts. That sounds directly relevant to FIRE.
It really is. They found the whole transition process is fueled by what they call possible selves.
Possible selves, what are those?
They're basically the mental pictures you have of who you might become in the future, who you'd like to be, maybe even who you fear becoming.
So images like, I could be a writer, or I could run a small farm, or maybe I fear becoming irrelevant.
Exactly. These images act as powerful motivators for change. They start as just ideas in your head, but the goal is to make them real, socially grounded identities.
Okay, so you start exploring these new possible selves. What happens next?
You enter what anthropologists and psychologists call the liminal period. Think of liminal as meaning threshold. It's like being in the hallway between two rooms.
You've left the old room, your old job, your old identity, but you haven't fully stepped into the new one yet.
Right. You're betwixt and between. This is the tricky middle stage.
And people listening might recognize this feeling. It's that sense of identity conflict, feeling like you're in a vacuum, maybe a bit directionless.
Absolutely. You're still partly tied to the old identity. Maybe you still talk about your past job achievements, but you're tentatively trying on the new one, like the idea of being a painter or a consultant. Your old colleagues might still see you one way, but the new community hasn't fully accepted you yet.
It sounds like a really uncomfortable place to be.
It is, because you're managing conflicting expectations, maybe even conflicting parts of yourself. You feel pressure to become this new self, but you don't quite have the skills or the social proof yet.
So how do people manage this liminal stage successfully?
The key strategy researchers identified is called identity buffering.
Buffering, like protecting something.
Exactly. The academic definition is a bit dense, using temporal, spatial, and relational boundaries to separate and protect immature possible selves. Let's simplify that.
Please do.
Think of it like creating a safe space, a sandbox, or a nursery for your fragile, developing new identity.
Okay, so you're protecting the new possible self from...
What? Skepticism, failure, both. You're protecting it from the judgments or expectations tied to your old successful self. For example, identity buffering might mean not telling your high-powered former colleagues about your fledgling pottery hobby at first. A relational boundary.
Or carving out specific protected time each week to work on it where you won't be interrupted. A temporal boundary.
Or maybe taking an evening class in a different part of town where nobody knows you used to be a VP. A spatial boundary. Your performance isn't being measured against your old self.
So these boundaries create a low-stakes environment to experiment and build skills.
Precisely. It lets you safely try on these potentially risky or different identities without facing immediate judgment or the pressure to perform at your previous high level. The buffer protects the new you until it's strong enough, practiced enough, to be integrated more publicly.
This makes so much sense of why things like side hustles, part-time work, or sabbaticals with specific learning goals are so effective.
They are perfect examples of psychological buffering. They aren't just about money or killing time. They're structured ways to develop skills, build confidence, and get validation for these possible selves before you make the full leap.
Okay, so you've buffered, you've practiced, the new identity is getting stronger. What's the final step to really own it?
You have to move from internal testing to external claiming. And this requires crafting a coherent transition narrative.
A story about yourself.
Essentially, yes.
Right.
A life story that explains convincingly both to yourself and to others why this change makes sense, why it's consistent with your core values, maybe even who you've always been deep down.
So instead of just saying, I quit finance and now I teach yoga.
You might frame it as, I realize the focus and discipline I developed in my finance career are incredibly valuable for my lifelong passion for mindfulness, and sharing that through teaching aligns perfectly with my core value of promoting well-being.
It connects the past to the present and future in a meaningful way.
Exactly. And by telling and retelling this integrated story in different social circles with old friends, new contacts, potential collaborators, you solidify it. You successfully claim that new identity.
Wow. This whole framework really shows that building a post-fire identity isn't something that just happens. It's an active, strategic, psychological process.
Absolutely. You have to consciously construct that new self, ideally before you leave the old one behind completely, or you risk getting lost in that uncomfortable, unproductive, liminal space.
Okay, so if that's the process of identity change, buffering, testing, building a narrative, what does the actual content of a fulfilled post-fire life look like? What's the blueprint for meaning when you don't have a job defining it?
Well, the first big step is realizing you need to consciously move beyond the default cultural script, where the job is everything. We have to stop letting work be the sole provider of status, identity, structure, and even community.
Because in modern life, work has kind of stepped in to fill the gaps left by other things, right? Like maybe tighter communities, extended family, or spiritual groups in the past.
That's a key insight from some sources. Work became the easy answer for identity and belonging. So naturally, when work becomes your only source of validation, losing it feels like an existential threat because you've lost your only real anchor.
So the solution is diversification, finding multiple anchors.
Exactly. Building multiple diversified sources of fulfillment and meaning. And luckily, there's a really good evidence-based framework for this. Psychologist Martin Seligman's PERMA model.
Ah, yes, PERMA. It's a well-regarded model for human flourishing, isn't it? Not tied to job titles at all.
Right. It gives you a practical 5-part checklist for intentionally designing a life that promotes well-being, whether you're working or not.
Let's break down those 5 elements, because anyone planning for or living in early retirement should probably be checking these boxes. First is P.
P is for positive emotions.
Yeah.
This is about actively cultivating feelings like joy, gratitude, serenity, hope, awe. The simple pleasures of being alive.
It doesn't have to be huge, life-changing events.
Not at all. It's about making time for simple things. Enjoying nature, mindful travel, getting lost in a good book, savoring a meal, having a real laugh with someone you care about. It's building the capacity to appreciate the small, good moments that the daily grind often makes us rush past.
Okay, P for positive emotions. Next is E.
E is for engagement. This is about finding flow. Those activities where you get so absorbed, so immersed, that you lose track of time. Your skills are challenged and you're fully present.
This is where hobbies really come in, right?
Absolutely. Playing music, gardening, writing, coding for fun, building something, fixing things, mastering a craft. Engagement is the direct antidote to that boredom problem we talked about. It satisfies the brain's need for challenge and focus.
Makes sense. Then R is for.
R is for relationships. This is crucial. Nurturing deep, meaningful connections with family, friends, and your community. The time and energy FI frees up must be intentionally channeled here.
This is often the area that gets sacrificed most during the intense accumulation phase. Sadly, yes. So post-FI, a major focus needs to be on rebuilding and deepening those connections, and specifically building non-transactional relationships connections based purely on mutual care and support, not professional gain. This is key to fighting that social isolation.
Got it. PER. What's M?
M is for meaning. This is about feeling connected to and serving something bigger than yourself, using your strengths and values in the service of a larger purpose.
This provides that sense of contribution, that feeling that your life matters beyond just your own enjoyment.
Exactly. Meaning can come from so many places. Volunteering for a cause you deeply believe in, getting involved in local politics or community groups, raising children with intention and presence, mentoring others, creating art or work that aims to help or inspire. It answers that question, what impact am I having?
Okay, one left. A is for.
A is for accomplishment. This is about pursuing mastery, setting goals, and achieving things that give you a sense of competence and pride. It's about striving and progressing.
This sounds like it replaces some of the achievement drive that the old job used to satisfy. It does. The brain needs feedback loops, that sense of getting better at something. So setting personal goals, maybe restoring an old house, learning a difficult language, training for a marathon, completing a complex project provides that essential feeling of progress. But now, you define the goals based on your interests, not your boss.
What I like about PERMA is you can use it like a diagnostic tool right now.
Totally. Look at your current life. Maybe your job gives you lots of engagement because it's challenging and some R relationships with colleagues. But if you're scoring low on P, positive emotions, M, meaning outside of work, and A, accomplishment and personal pursuits, then you know exactly which gaps you need to start filling before you even think about retiring.
You can start building those muscles now.
Exactly. And the real-world stories of people who are thriving
Hmm.
post-FI, they absolutely confirm this need for continued purposeful engagement. Financially independent people rarely just stop doing things.
Stop doing things they have to do, maybe.
Precisely. They exchange mandatory work for chosen work. They stay active, but they maintain total control over what they do, how much they do, and how they structure it. It's all driven by internal motivation now.
Let's bring this to life with those examples you mentioned earlier. They really illustrate how people navigate this identity transition and build fulfilling lives using these principles.
Okay, great. First, let's talk about Permjot. He's interesting because his FI was almost accidental. It came from the unexpected success of some funds he was involved in. He didn't plan for it, so he faced that identity shock immediately.
His old identity was venture capitalist, startup guy. How did he pivot?
He strategically shifted how he used his expertise. Instead of chasing new deals for profit, he focused heavily on pro bono mentoring for young entrepreneurs and took on advisory roles for nonprofits he cared about. He essentially detached his skills from the need for payment.
And his transition narrative was key, wasn't it?
Very much so. He didn't frame it as retiring. He talked about shifting his focus from accumulation to contribution. He moved from the hands-on startup work of his 40s to higher-level strategy and leadership development in his 50s. This really fulfilled the meaning part of PERMA for him.
He found a new way to use his accomplishment drive.
Exactly. He said something like he's only done a couple of days of what felt like real work in years because everything he does now is chosen aligned with his values.
Okay, who's next? Rachel. Her path was different, more intentional about escaping the grind, right?
Yes. Rachel was burned out by the corporate world and its focus on consumption. Her path to FI wasn't about hitting some massive number, which would have taken way too longer. It was more intuitive. She radically cut her expenses, getting her budget under €1,000 a month.
So she focused on the expenses side of the FI equation, not just the income investment side.
Right, which accelerated her timeline significantly. And her post-FI life is a fantastic example of identity buffering and PERMA. She built a new identity as a kind of global nomad and lifestyle coach.
How does she manage the cost and lifestyle?
She travels constantly by doing house and pet sitting in interesting places, which basically eliminates her housing costs. That's great spatial buffering right there. She also built an online coaching business and takes on freelance projects she enjoys.
And she actually makes more money now.
Often, yes. But it's entirely on her terms, doing work she loves. Her focus is clearly on P, positive emotions, through experiences like volunteering at an animal sanctuary, and B, engagement, through her coaching and projects. Her accomplishment comes from mastering this location-independent life and helping others, not climbing a corporate ladder. She never really stopped working. She just took complete control.
Fascinating. And the last example? Abel. He sounds like the model for scenario B, the strategic planner.
Abel is definitely the textbook case for doing it right. He and his wife were very intentional, living on one salary for years to build FI. But crucially, they were doing the life planning concurrently.
He realized the next step in his career, a big CEO role, wouldn't actually align with his deeper values around time freedom.
Exactly. He saw the conflict coming and made a choice based on values before chasing the title or the money. That's key.
So what did his transition look like?
He deliberately moved out of the high-pressure corporate job into what you might call a portfolio career. Selective consulting gigs, serving on non-executive boards, teaching some university courses. Things that used his skills, but allowed flexibility.
He was identity buffering along the way, testing these possible selves before quitting.
Absolutely. He took on smaller projects, aligned with this future vision, long before he left his main job. And now, they treat their life planning like a business. They have annual strategy meetings, quarterly reviews.
Checking in on finances and lifestyle goals. Against PERMA, maybe.
He got it. He still gets that accomplishment buzz from doing high-level strategic work, but he dictates the terms completely, the volume, the location, the timing. It guarantees both his freedom and his sense of ongoing meaning.
So all three stories show something similar. FI isn't a static finish line.
Not at all. It's an ongoing, dynamic process that has to integrate your values, your goals, and that conscious identity work right from the start. Not just focusing on the portfolio size tomorrow, but on the quality of your life today and how you want it to evolve. So let's try and wrap this up, pull together the main threads from this deep dive. The core lesson seems really clear, and it definitely shifts the focus away from just the math, doesn't it?
It really does. Fire the financial part. It's just a tool. A powerful one, yes, that buys you time and freedom. But it's the starting line for the next phase, not the finish line of life.
Right. The real work, the stuff that prevents that feeling of emptiness, that existential void,
Hmm.
it's psychological, it's philosophical.
It means figuring out your why, your deep internal purpose. It means actively building an identity that isn't solely dependent on your job title. And it means doing that serious, honest life planning, maybe using something like PERMA before you hit the number.
We've kind of established that happiness, meaning, fulfillment. These aren't prizes handed out at retirement. They're skills. You have to learn them, practice them, build them through intentional effort and structure.
You have to use the journey towards FI to build the person who can actually handle and thrive in the freedom of FI.
Well said. The ultimate freedom, then, it's not really about the millions in the bank or hitting the 4% rule withdrawal rate perfectly.
It's about the quality of your average day, isn't it? The sense of meaning you get from how you spend your time, being the deliberate author of your own life.
Exactly. So if you're listening right now and you're on this path, whether you just started or you're getting close to your number, we want to leave you with one final thought. Something to chew on maybe as you go back to your spreadsheets.
Ask yourself the simple but really critical question. Am I running toward a life that genuinely excites me, a life built on purpose, and a clear sense of who I want to be?
Or am I mostly just running away from a job or a situation that's making me miserable right now?
Because the freedom to choose what's next is incredibly valuable. We all want that. But the intention behind that choice, that's everything.
Use this journey to FI not just as a financial project, but as a project of self-design. Intentionally build, buffer, test, and construct the purposeful self you want to inhabit when the time comes. That's the only way to make sure the prize isn't an empty one.